to have Dr. Seth Pearl here presenting The Perfect Storm. And we're just waiting for a couple more people to come on the line. So just so everybody knows that your phones are muted so we don't hear you, but you can hear us. And in a few minutes, Dr. Seth Pearl will start his presentation. And Dr. Pearl, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. I'm really excited to be doing this right now. Amidst the snow and the storm that's outside, it's nice to be presenting in a nice, warm office. So let's wait a few more minutes and make sure that everyone that is trying to get in can get in. We had a lot of people sign up today, which is great, and a lot of interest. And I want to make sure that everyone is able to hear what we have to say. So I say we give it another. I see people kind of pouring in as we start. So I'm going to give it another 2 minutes, and then we're going to get going.
Okay, terrific.
Okay. So Lisa, are you there?
Yes.
So Kim is telling me that that they cannot see the slides. So I just want to make sure that they could all see the slides.
Okay.
Okay. Nope, they've got it now.
Oh, great.
They're all set. This wouldn't be a webinar, Lisa, if we didn't have our technical difficulties. This means it's going to be another great one, so I'm excited.
Yes, just for the folks out there, we, the Ossining Septo group, we've been doing live presentations, and at the same time, for folks who can't make it in person, we've been doing a webinar option, and our last time with Dr. Pearl, unfortunately, the internet service where we were was not fast enough, so everything kept dropping out. So we apologize, and we're very glad for anybody who was on the call on the webinar last time that you're able to join us this time. And for newcomers, that's great. So we're very excited, and thank you again, Dr. Pearl, for your time to do this webinar again. And we are recording it, and we'll be able to send it out to, of course, anybody who was not able to make it.
Okay, so I think we are going to get started.
Okay, great.
All right, so thank you all for coming tonight. Some housekeeping here. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through a webinar scenario, which means you're going to be hearing me, and also on your screen you're going to be seeing some slides, some video, and at the end or even during this webinar conference that we're doing, I'm going to ask that you all ask questions. And those questions are going to go into the question box, which Lisa may have to go over with you. But there's a question box that you could ask questions, and I encourage that because, after all, this is going to be an interactive type of a webinar. I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear your questions. I want to know what you're thinking, and I want to give you some answers that you can take home and use with your own families. So this is called the perfect storm. The cause behind neurodevelopmental challenges and disorders. And we call this the perfect storm because what we're finding out there is that our children are suffering. Our children are suffering so much that now we're seeing a 1 in 25 or even lower statistic of some sort of developmental issue, whether it be dyslexia, whether it be ADD, ADHD, it could be autism, Asperger's. Any of these issues that are out there are becoming more and more prevalent, not because we're diagnosing it more, because that would mean that we have a lot of older people diagnosed with this, and which we don't have. So what we are seeing is a change. And there's a change in our world around us that is really setting up this storm for these children to show these underlying neurodevelopmental issues that are rearing their ugly heads. So what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about that. We're going to get into not only just the theory behind it, but we're going to get into some nerdy stuff too. We're going to get into some science. And I use a word called passionate. Passionate means passionate and sometimes a little pissed off, if I may say. So the word passionate may come out of my mouth a few times because I get so passionate about this type of work that it kind of emanates from me. And those of you that are patients of mine, those of you that know me, know that when I see imbalances and I see disruptions in our society, I can't help but say something about it. And that's what we're going to kind of do tonight. But more importantly than that, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting some answers, some clear-cut answers on what's going on with your children, what's going on with the children in society, and really what's going on in the world. So before we start, I want you to check this out. So this just came in yesterday or 2 days ago. ADD diagnosis soared amid a 20-year drug marketing campaign. This is from NBC News, and what this is showing here is the drug companies have been marketing so much to parents and to kids that we've had something like 1,000 or 2,000 increase in the use of ADD and ADHD medications. The developers of the medications can't understand why this is exploding so much. And it could be because we're looking for answers. We have children that we have never seen before. We have children that are not, quote unquote, paying attention in school. We have children that are challenged with sitting in their seat. There was one Adderall commercial that said, "Thank you, Johnny, for brushing or for taking out the garbage." This is what we're kind of putting our kids up against here, and we're finding that it's a losing battle, and the teachers and the schools are really starting to implement more of a, let's go take Johnny to the psychiatrist or the psychopharmacologist because we need to calm Johnny down. What we're going to be doing is possibly talking about why Johnny is feeling that way in the first place. So I jumped a little bit ahead of myself, but what I want to do is talk about me. I mean, this is my webinar, right? Many of you can't, you guys can't see me now, but who knows? I could be doing this in my robe for all you know. But actually, I'm here in my beautiful office in Larchmont after a busy day of seeing many patients. And what we're doing is helping remove these obstacles that these kids are going through. So I'm first and foremost a husband and a daddy. I have a great wife and 2 beautiful children that hopefully are listening right now. My beautiful wife Stacy is also listening, and what we do is we practice what we preach. Things that you're going to be hearing tonight are things that we do with our own children. I am a doctor. Okay, I'm a DC, a doctor of chiropractic. That means I have a little bit of a specialty here in the neurology and how the neurology affects the body. And that gives me a doctorate degree to really go out there and help people with specific issues. I'm also a certified clinical nutritionist. I'm a CCN. That means I can look at the diet. I can look at the biology and the chemistry of the body and make some sense of that as well. In New York, there's another certification called a CNS, Certified Nutritional Specialist, which gives me some extra ability to look at lab tests and do some other out-of-the-box therapies. I've also done some extensive work with Dr. Ned Hollowell. Those of you that are in New York or in Boston may know him. He's a really world-renowned psychiatrist that works with attention deficit disorder. And what this doctor does is, and what he has done is trained me and some other doctors on a specific protocol to really help kids that have attention deficit disorder, helping them understand that their gift is just that. it's a gift, and it's neither a deficit nor a disorder. So we'll get into that a little bit towards the end of the webinar tonight. And I'm a lecturer. I lecture for the National Autism Association, Autism One, ASA, the SEPTAs around Tri-State. I will talk to anyone that will listen. So those of you that are out there that are parts of schools, I would love for you to also pass my name along, because I would love to do some more lecturing in the community here in New York. And I'm an all-around pretty cool dude. I'm not waving crystals over people's heads. We're not doing any funky stuff. We're doing stuff rooted in science and neurology. And what we are doing is getting people well. People ask me my why. Why do I do what I do? I could be cracking backs, and I could be taking care of pain, which we actually do very well. But I like to see families. This happens to be my family on your screen right now. But I like to see families, because when you can help treat a family, you can help that family grow. And when that family grows, they enrich their community. And when their community grows, we enrich the towns and the states and the country. That's my goal, is to get out there and to help as many people as I possibly can lead a drug-free life and allow them to express their optimal potential. Now, clinically, this is my why. And I want to share this with you right now, because this is very important to me. This came to me on Thanksgiving. And when I got this email, I wept. And I'm going to tell you why. Let's read it. Hello, Dr. Pearl. This is Jamie, and I left the name out. I don't know if you remember me, but I was your patient back in 2004. You helped me greatly, health-wise and mentally. I just wanted to tell you how things have been going for me since we last met. I've lived in Prague for 2 years and have traveled around Europe for a while during that time. I then moved to Sydney, where I attended Knox Grammar School, one of the highest regarded all-boys private schools in New South Wales, for the last 2 years of high school, and I passed. I have recently finished a film and television course at community college and wanting to pursue a career as either a film director, writer, or actor. Please message me back when you get a chance. I would love to hear from you again and find out how things have been with you. Now, here's the kicker, guys. I mention this because I would not be able to accomplish half the things I have without your help and all the treatments you have done for me. So for that, thank you. Now, when I got this, it blew my mind. And I'm going to tell you why. It blew my mind because Jamie was nonverbal. Jamie was a headbanger. Jamie was in the most intra-secluded sensory world that I have ever seen. When Jamie used to come to my office and Jamie was dragged by his mother, literally dragged by his mother to come into my office, Jamie would immediately crawl under the seats in my office and lay there. It was comfortable for him. It was dark, it was compact, and it was quiet. Jamie did not want to see the world around him. I treated Jamie for about 2 years, maybe a little longer, and this is the note I got 13 to whatever, how many years, 10 years, 11 years later. This is why I do what I do. And this is why I don't care if there's 10 people or 50 people or 1,000 people listening. It takes one person. It takes one parent to think that their child is Jamie. And for that parent to take a step out of the box and say, you know what, maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's something that we can do to help our child. Many parents that I see, if I peer into your windows late at night, this is what I see. I see a mom, usually, on a computer with piles of papers, with websites of things that are going on, new treatments, old treatments. What is my child thinking about? How can I help my child? What am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing enough? Am I doing too little? And this is the frustration that I get when parents come to see me. And then when I finally walk in the door, I get this. Am I in the right place? Who is this guy? What am I doing here? I hope this works. Can any of you relate with this picture? Because I can. I know for sure that these parents that I see are Hopefully you can still hear me. Okay. Thank you. Are looking like this and saying, you know what, I've got to do something. Before we start our lecture, I'm going to give you guys a test. Do you believe this? The first thing Dr. Pearl does when he gets on the webinar is give us a test. Well, I'm going to give you a test. And this test is going to go like this. You may hear this, you may not be able to hear this, but what I want you to do is I want you to watch these basketball players, and then I want you to tell me how many times they're passing the ball. Let's check it out.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
Okay, this is your first chance to use your chat button, guys. How many passes did the team in white make? Could anyone type in for us? And Lisa, if you could relay that to me, that would be great. I'm going to give you guys 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Anyone have any answers? All right, somebody said 10. Let's take a look.
The answer is 13.
Ah, 13. How many of you got it right? I know one of you got it wrong. All right, guys, but wait. What else do we see here?
But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Go!
There he is. There he goes. Who saw the bear? Did anyone see the moonwalking bear? The answer is probably no. The answer is probably no. Why? Because it's something that you weren't looking for. And that's our lecture tonight. That's our webinar. I'm going to be giving you things that you may not be looking for. And the reason why I do this and the reason why I show that video is because parent after parent that comes into my office says the same exact thing. Why didn't I know? I didn't know that you can do that. I didn't know what chiropractic is. I didn't know. I wasn't looking for it. I'm the moonwalking bear. And this is going to be how we find that bear. When I was in 8th grade, my teacher, Ms. Cohen, gave me 2 rules. She said to me, don't call kids names. What was the other one? Don't do drugs. What do we do nowadays? We're giving kids names. We're giving them diagnoses. We're calling them out. They're autistic. They're sensory. They're PDD. They're Asperger's. They're anxiety-ridden. They're bipolar. They're allergic. They're asthmatic. They're autistic. We're giving them names, and we're giving them drugs most of the time to help to sedate those names. We're giving them things like Ritalin, Strattera, Concerta, Adderall, Zoloft, Abilify, phenobarbital. By the way, do you all know how they got the name Adderall? It's in that article that I showed you earlier. The drug companies basically said, how can we get this to all the kids that we need? So they said, ADD for all. ADD-all. Adderall. So it went from ADD for all to Adderall. And it's a pretty catchy name if you ask me. Now, many people nowadays are thinking about the flu pandemic. It's wintertime here, and people are concerned about the flu, right? Well, the flu pandemic isn't as bad as what we see here with asthma. Asthma is 1 in 10 kids. It costs $50 billion to treat this in this country. That means the people that have it, it's costing us $3,300 per person. Hello. ADHD, 1 in 9 kids. 1 in 12 boys, the most common prescribed medication, has the same class as cocaine. 1 in 9 kids are being diagnosed and treated for ADHD. Mental illness, 1 in 5 kids. So in CVS, they're talking about getting your flu shot because there's a flu pandemic. Why isn't anyone talking about ADD, ADHD, mental illness, asthma, all of these things? That's the real pandemic. Autism, that's the real pandemic that we need to be talking about. We need to educate and master what's going on with all of these issues rather than to talk about a seasonal thing that is only riddled in lies and fear. So what is this perfect storm? This lecture is called The Perfect Storm, and it's rightfully so, because what we're finding is that when the air is ripe and when the wind blows in a certain direction and the humidity is a certain direction and the temperature and everything is in its right spot, boom, we get this storm. Same thing here. To look at dis-ease, when a child is in a dis-ease state, the emotions are a little bit off. The chemistry is a little bit off. Their physical bodies are a little bit off, causing what's called subluxation. And this subluxation causes a neurological deficit in the body, and that's what sets off this perfect storm. In just a few minutes, we're going to get deep into that, and we're going to talk about what that all means. But right now, let's continue. Let's talk about the first one. Let's talk about this physical stress, or what many people call trauma. Now, this is one of the 3 T's, and we're going to talk about those T's as traumas, toxins, and thoughts. The most important one, the most important T that we have to talk about today, and one that I can make the most impact in, and us as chiropractors can, is the trauma or the traumatic stress. And much of that comes from birth trauma, in utero constraints, forceps, vacuums, cord wrapped around, and also C-sections. I read an article this morning that in our area, in Bronxville here, there is almost a 50% C-section rate in that hospital. It's unbelievable what's happening with C-sections. People think C-sections are an easy way to get a baby out. I'm going to show you in a little while how absolutely scary it is as well, and some of the repercussions that can come from that. So C-sections is a form of trauma. Childhood falls and car seats, baby Bjorns, bouncy seats. I mean, here we go. How many of you have or have had one or more of these Bjorns? I mean, look at the child on the baby seat. I mean, my little one had her head like that for the first year and a half of her life, because we were, schlepping the other child around. So then now you have a second or a third child or even a fourth child. They're in the car for hours with their head cranked in certain positions. Baby jumpers, which spread out the legs. Over here on the left, we have the baby Bjorn, which, I don't know, that doesn't look comfortable to me. They've sold a heck of a lot of them, and I find that we're having much more sacroiliac issues in our newborns now after they've been in these baby Bjorns. So there's things that we can do, there's things that we can see, but there's reasons behind it, and these are some of them. Let's check this out, because many of you are saying, yeah, but you know what? My kid gets falls here and there, but what does that really mean? Let's take a look at what falls really look like. I had to put that one in there. You get the picture, right? You get the picture. You see where I'm going with this. And, at the end of the day, those are some big problems. And our kids do fall. And we don't want to make neurotic parents, but think of it as little by little, all these little falls that are compounding in the child, sprinkle that with, like I said before, the temperature is down, the barometric pressure is right. Now this child falls, and I don't mean it literally, I mean it figuratively. Now this child falls, and boom, they could have some misalignment in their spine, which we'll talk about. So trauma is a big deal. And it's a big deal to me as a chiropractor because it's one of the first things that I ask for. It's one of the first things that I look for when I analyze a child. And 9 out of 10 times, we're finding issues. The second thing here is chemical stress, or the toxic stress. And we know now that, that there's more preservatives and pesticides in our foods now than there ever were in our entire lives. The food was dirtier back then when our parents and our parents' parents were eating it, but at least it was fresh. They had ice boxes the size of an ice box. Now we have sub-zero ice boxes that can hold things forever. We buy in bulk. We buy in mass. And what we're finding now is that the factory farming and the mass production of food maybe isn't so safe for us. And we're processing this food in such a way that it's causing our bodies to ingest foods that it was not meant to ingest. Things like modified organisms, genetically modified organisms, soy products that have been altered, genetically modified foods are really one of the biggest challenges that we have to deal with as far as toxins, and the pesticides that we spray on them as well. Sugar, grains, dairy-based diets, all of these things now are becoming more and more popular with our kids. Just go down the aisles of the supermarket, and you'll find that on eye level for the kids are these grainy, sugary cereals. And they have bright colors, and these kids want to eat them because it's there and it looks good and it tastes good, and we want to please our kids. So many of us are giving it to our kids, and it's becoming a big challenge. And lastly, you know, the environmental chemicals. You know, they're everywhere. Household cleaners, detergents, astringents, all of these things that we're putting into our home and into our bodies are also giving us a tinge of that stress on the chemical side of our bodies. Okay, and you know, this is going to be for another day, but the vaccines and the vaccine ingredients, the things that are in them, not the vaccines themselves, but the things that are causing the vaccines to have shelf lives of years, like mercury, aluminum, sorbitol, and much, much more for me to even go over today, are also things that we're pumping into our bodies that may have adverse reactions and effects. Great movie that came out is this. I'm going to show you a short clip, but it gives us a good understanding of what's happening with the food supply.
One of the best things terrorists could do is just build more fast food restaurants, maybe add another pharmaceutical company, have a couple more infomercials, and encourage people to eat the way they eat now. And everybody's going to be dead in 100 years. They can just walk right in, don't have to do a thing.
One quarter of what you eat keeps you alive, and 3/4 of what you eat keeps your doctor alive. I used to get high for a living, and all the bullshit food they told me. Cancer rates going up, heart disease going up, stroke going up.
We're poisoning ourselves with highly processed, nutrient-depleted food.
One of the major problems is what we do to the soil and the air and the water and everything we take in our food.
We, for whatever reason, decided we're going to spray everything with every kind of pesticide, herbicide, larvicide, fungicide. We decided we're going to genetically modify things we don't know anything about. Can we actually improve what has already been created? And the answer is maybe, but not the way we've been doing it.
If you want to know what's wrong, look down at the table. It's staring back at you.
All right. Some pretty crazy stuff. Pretty crazy stuff. And what we're doing is we're eating that stuff, and we're eating it a lot. We're eating a lot of it. And, you know, one of the things that we have to do is really start to clean up what we're eating. So let's go to our third P. Mental, emotional stress. Okay, the thoughts. Now, many of you are saying, well, I don't think of my child as depressed or anxious, you know, as a baby. Well, of course not. But think about what pregnancy is at this point. Pregnancy is now become a disease pattern. It's become a diagnosis. Right now, if you're diagnosed with pregnancy, you're getting, X amount of ultrasounds, you're getting blood tests, you're having the fear of God instilled in you that you need to carry this baby to 40 weeks, and you need to have a very healthy, happy baby. And that puts a lot of stress on the child and on the parent. Now, at the end of the day, what we end up saying is that nerves that wire together fire together, okay? If this child has if the parent has a stress pregnancy, and this child feels that stress, and they feel that adrenaline surging through the mother, now all of a sudden they get chopped out of a belly, and they get thrown into a warmer, and they get poked in the foot with a needle, and they get slapped, and they get turned, and they get shuffled away into a unit where they don't get to see their mother as much as they need to or want to. That sets the stage for stress, okay? If you really think about it and you really boil it down, this child or these children are coming out stressed now because there's intervention that's really getting into the mix of our quote-unquote natural childbirth. So it's scary. Okay, forced emergency deliveries and C-sections, NICU stays, and fast-paced, stressed life. I have many, many parents that are working up until the time that their baby is due, and they have high-powered jobs. Now, in the old days, we didn't really do that, right? I mean, it sounds a little sexist, and I don't want to be, but we really nurtured pregnancy. We said, and we wanted parents and mothers to rest. We wanted them to really focus on that child that they have inside of them, or that embryo, and not live their life in this fast-paced world and then pump out a kid and then go back to work. But it's unfortunate that it's happening. It's happening a lot now. And then the child, once they come out and they actually have one of these issues, getting labeled and getting diagnosed and having a stigma on top of that is also just another way that oftentimes their stress levels are starting to get a little bit higher than they should. And with that comes bullying. So as I said earlier, here we go. Here's our new normal. This is normal, by the way, guys. We have a fear-based pregnancy. Okay, then we finally give birth, and we have a birth injury, a subluxation, which we'll talk about on our next step here. Then maybe this child is that has this birth injury, now has poor sleep, and they develop colic, and now they really can't nurse that well, so now we have to give them formula, which is milk-based, and if it's milk-based, it's probably mucus-forming, and many of the kids that have milk-based formulas start to develop mucus, and now the mucus settles in the ear, and now we get ear infections, not only some, but chronic. Many of the kids that come into our office, they have an average of 10 ear infections in the first 2 years of life. That's not normal, guys. And how do we treat that? We treat that with antibiotics, which destroys the gut, decreases the immune system, and then when that's all happening, then we give them these vaccines. Now, this is not a vaccine lecture. We're not going to get into are we pro or against vaccine, but what we're saying is we give a heck of a lot of them here. And now that insults the body as well. And add on top of that the food that they're eating and the environment. How do our kids even have a chance? Could this be the reason why maybe we're seeing 1 in 27 kids with some sort of a developmental issue now? It could be. Let's think about it. So let's understand how chiropractic works in this field. We talked a lot about prepping up for this storm, but what is a chiropractor on the other end of this phone trying to tell you here? Well, we're not all about sore backs, right? We're great at taking care of that stuff, but we're not about having the back feel better. At least I'm not. I'm more of a functional type of a chiropractor, because the function of the nervous system, and as I said to you on the beginning of this call, the nervous system is what we are trained in, and the function of the nervous system is to perceive the environment and coordinate the behavior of all other cells. Now, there's 2 words there that are really, really important. The first one is perception or perceive, and the second one is coordinate. Now, take that out and put it on the shelf right here. Our children with autism, our children with Asperger's, our children with sensory disorders, our children with ADD and ADHD, are they coordinated? Do they have good perception? Most of the time, not. So you think it's safe to say if they're uncoordinated and they have perception issues that maybe there's something going on with the nervous system? Let's uncover and see. So those of you that have it, I sent out a packet. The packet has 3 different pages, or really 4 pages. One of them is this picture right here, and it's the effects of subluxation on nerve interference. We're going to get into subluxation in a minute, but what this chart tells us, and hopefully you can see it, is what area of the spine affects what part of the body, and then what are some of the symptoms that could come out of it. And that's going to be important in about 5 minutes when we talk about it, but I just want you to get a general look at the upper cervical, or the C's, the stuff up by the top of the head, that innervates or tells the eyes, the ears, the nose, the sensory system what to do. The ones in the middle back tell the body how to perceive stress, okay? Is the body stressed or is it not? Is something like talking causing the body to become stressed? Is food causing the body to become stressed? That's our stress regulation centers in the middle part of our spine. In the lower part of our spine, that's where we digest our foods. That's where our immune system sits. That's where all of these organs that deal with the processing and the shuttling of food and nutrients through our bodies, that's where that all stays. So the spine and the nerves are pretty darn important, and we get to work on that every single day. Now, when there's an imbalance in that nervous system, we start to see some challenges, meaning when that nervous system is being compromised by any of these 3 T's that we just talked about, traumas, toxins, and thoughts, those can cause what we call subluxation. Subluxation is basically, a $20 word that is used for misalignments in the spine. Not just misalignments in the spine, but misalignments in the nervous system. Challenges and changes in the nervous system that can cause problems. When we have these subluxations, what happens in our bodies is this. The body has 2 systems. It has a gas pedal system and a brake pedal system. The more subluxations we have, the more our body puts on the gas. And the less subluxations we have, the more the body can put on the brakes. All right? Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. The gas pedal part of the body, that's the protection mechanism. That's the stress response. That's the survival mode. That's the on-off switch. The parasympathetic, or the brake pedal mode, is more of the rest, the digestion, the relaxation, and most importantly, the growth and development portions of the body. So again, if you have these subluxations, your body is more on the gas pedal than the brake. If your body has less of these stresses or less of these subluxations, we have more pressure on the brake pedal, the growth, the relaxation portion of the brain. Now here's something interesting, guys. You can't be on the gas pedal and the brake pedal at the same time. You just can't. It's not how the body works. And genetically and physiologically, it can't happen. So what we end up seeing is that there's more of one or the other. And what do you guys think we see more of? That's right. We see more of the gas pedal. We see more of that sympathetic tone, that fight or flight response, which we'll talk about. So we're going to get into some nerdy stuff now. If you thought that was nerdy, let's dive right in. Subluxation, okay? Subluxation is that misalignment. There's the 3 causes, the physical, the chemical, and the emotional stress, which we went over. The effect, however, gives us all of these really funky words. We're not going to get into those words, but those of you that are doctors on the line, basically what these words are the different phases of what happens in our nervous system. And those of you that understand these words will see that something pressing on that nervous system can cause our bodies to dysfunction. When subluxation occurs, okay, when that misalignment occurs, that's when a joint becomes misaligned and fixated, losing its ability to go through its proper range of motion. Okay, that's pretty simple. Let's look at this picture, for example. Okay, the picture on the left, it looks like the head is cocked and tilted to the side. The picture on the right looks straight. Look what's happening. When that head is cocked to the right side like that, then there's some what's called brainstem compromise. Okay, brain stem compromisation. There is an area there that's not able to flow the way that it should. We're going to talk about how we get those in a second. That's what we call the main circuit breaker. If that area is out of alignment, well then everything from there down is going to be compromised. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you guys a video. Those of you that are skittish, squeamish, or have had C-sections, you may just want to close your eyes and not watch. But I think it's important that we all take a look at this and see what our medical profession is now saying is the preferred way of delivering a child. Okay, guys? I don't mean to freak you out, but I want you all to see this. And I think it's important. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Good luck. Oh, there you go, fella.
Come on, buddy.
All right.
Ears of a girl. Ears of a girl.
Cute for the camera.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Here's big old testicle thing. Bottom of a boy. Yeah. Well, he should have a big head here.
Yeah, that was the problem. The head.
Eek! Eek! What was that? That was a C-section. That was the calm C-section that we all say, oh, my baby was just taken out of my belly that way. Okay, what we saw there was a vacuum extraction. Look at the force that was going off of that head. Look at the force and the twisting and the turning of that forced movement to bring that child up. That's some scary stuff. I mean, and that child wasn't ready for it, right? What if I had one of you sitting on the ground here, sitting, and I was coming over to you, and I had my hands outstretched? Well, if you saw me, then you would start to tighten up, and you would say, okay, here he comes. He's going to lift my head up. Well, this poor baby was, nice and warm in the area, and all of a sudden it was unzipped and pulled out by its neck like that. Do you think it was challenging for that child? Yes. That's the real pandemic. Research, Dr. Gutman, MD, found that spinal injury was presented in 80% of the infants he examined shortly after birth, causing interference to the neurologic and immune system. 80% of normally vaginally or C-section children, infants, he examined shortly after birth, he saw that they had misalignments in the spine. He concluded that observations of motor development and manual control of the occipito-atlantoaxial joint, that was that picture of that head cocked to one side and that other picture straight. He saw that that joint was one of the joints that became misaligned or subluxated after birth, and that should be checked after birth. Furthermore, this AAO joint should be examined and, if required, specifically adjusted, as a successive adjustment overshadows every other treatment. Meaning, there should be somebody trained in manual medicine after every birth to say, hey, buddy, let me check that spine out. Let me check that upper cervical spine out because you just had a traumatic event. Let's make sure that there's not an issue there. And what we're finding is that I'm getting more and more referrals from midwives. And the midwives are referring to me because they understand that there's a challenge with the birthing process. And by the way, birthing never used to be like it is now. It used to be, in water. They used to do a seated chair. They used to have gravity help. But now what we're doing is we're using force to bring that child out. and 9 out of 10 times, or 8 out of 10 times, we're finding that there's a misalignment in that spine that could be setting the stage for this whole subluxation process. Okay? Basically, when we have that dyskinesia or that misalignment in the spine, it causes the nerves not to function properly. I have a great little video here that I'd like to show you. Hopefully it's not too choppy. which kind of goes over that and talks about that a little bit. So let's watch this real quick. It's going to be a quick one.
Some kids are really bouncy and can't sit still. Some kids aren't very coordinated. Some see food as a pile of toxic goo that hurts their mouth and jangles their taste buds. School might be a mysterious place where things don't make much sense. If this sounds like you, you may have sensory processing disorder, and we're going to explain it here. Your body has 7 senses: vision in your eyes, hearing in your ears, touch in your skin, taste in your mouth, and smell in your nose. And you have 2 movement senses: your muscles and your sense of balance. In sensory processing disorder, these senses don't communicate right with your brain. Think of the nerves connecting your brain and senses as a set of roads. Those roads should be smooth superhighways so that the senses and brain can communicate fast. If you have sensory processing disorder, then some of your roads are bumpy and rough.
And those are our misalignments.
You can also think of the senses as having a broken volume control. If the volume is too high, you will feel your senses too strongly. If the volume is too low, you won't feel sensation at all. In fact, you'll want more.
Sound familiar? You know, many of our kids have that, right? They have these sensory processing disorders. And as the video showed, these sensory processing disorders are can be due to the fact that messages may not be getting to where they need to be. Those misalignments may be causing the messages to become distorted, or those messages to become too high or too low. Think about that next time you're looking at your child. Are they seeking input from an area that they, that they need? Are they? By the way, that coughing was not me. That was the screen. And they're trying to get information, or they're trying to hug hard, or they're trying to roll around, or they're trying to stim or move their hands in such a way to get stimulation because they have too low. So that was a good example of that. And again, getting back to this picture, that all could be coming from these misaligned spine. And where is that coming from? That could be coming from the nervous system and from the birth process and all the other stresses that we saw early on. So when our spine doesn't move, we can't charge the batteries, okay? The spine is basically the battery recharging station. I mean, think about it, guys. When we have movement, we recharge. You're sitting here listening to me. You're probably sitting on a chair. You may be sitting on the couch. You may be laying in bed. Who knows? But what's happening right now is you're not expelling any energy, but you're probably getting really, really tired. But if I told you to all get up and run around the street for a while and come back, you would be recharged. Okay? How is that possible? You're not using any calories when you're laying there on the bed, but you're using a lot of calories when you run around the block. Well, that's because the spine gets our brain moving. And if we have movement in the spine, we have movement in the brain. If we don't have movement in the spine, that brain starts to drop down in voltage, okay? Just like the picture of this little battery right here. It starts to slow down. And when we have these subluxations or these misalignments in the spine, what do you think happens? The spine doesn't move, so the brain doesn't get all the information or the stimulation that it needs. 60% of the movement comes from the spine, and 1/3 of that just from the upper part of the neck. So 1/3 of all input from the body comes from that upper cervical spine, that same upper cervical spine that Gutman said 80% of the times was stuck. So many of our kids, 80% of them are coming out with 30% less movement in the spine, thus not allowing the brain to recharge and to charge and to function the way that it should. That's fascinating. So let's look at this in a flow chart. The misalignment causes a fixation. That fixation causes stress. When we have stress on the body, we have that gas pedal more than the brake pedal. If we have more gas pedal, then we go into that fight or flight mode. And that fight or flight mode controls every single part of our body. Let's check it out. Ready? We don't need to go over that, but we need to go over this. Let's talk about what stress looks like in the body. Let's take a couple of steps back. When we were cavemen and we would go down to the watering hole to pick out some water, we would go down to try to feed our family. What would we do? We'd walk down there with a bucket, we'd go, and we'd fill up that bucket, and then all of a sudden, we would look behind us, and we saw this thing looking at us with the teeth and the claws and the hair, the whole thing. A couple things would happen. The first thing that would happen is our heart rate would increase, wouldn't you say? The second thing that would happen is our digestion would slow down. The third thing that would happen is our immune system would shut off. The fourth thing that would happen is energy would be shunted to our hands and our feet. And then our peripheral vision would increase, meaning we would be able to see almost 360 degrees around us. Our auditory acuity would increase. Now we could hear where that saber-toothed tiger is. We hear our heart beating. Has any of you ever felt that? When your husbands or your wives or your loved ones are away and you're home alone, all of a sudden you hear something, all of a sudden you could see in the dark, you hear everything, and your hands start shaking. That's a stress response. That is what we call an adrenal response, and that's active when we have stress in the system. Now, the fact that you guys are listening to me right now is a result of having this stress response, right? You somehow, your ancestors got out of a tricky situation with a saber-toothed tiger or somebody that was trying to colonize their town or somebody that was trying to kill them at one point. They used that stress response to get out of danger. The challenge that we're experiencing now is that these 3 T's that we see, the traumas, toxins, and thoughts, are compounding the stress in our children. And our children have this fight or flight response that's on all the time. Now think about that. I said earlier that their digestion slows down and their immune system slows down. Did any of you know why that happens? It's because this digestive system and the immune system are very energy expensive systems. Those systems take up a lot of battery life. So if you're going to get chewed up by a saber-toothed tiger, your body doesn't care if it's going to get the flu, does it? If you're going to get chewed up by a saber-toothed tiger, the body doesn't care if you're going to digest your food and go to the bathroom, does it? It just wants to get you out of danger. Think about that if our children had that on all the time. These are our kids that have constipation issues. These are our kids that get sick all the time or don't get sick at all, which is even scarier. These are the kids where energy is shunted to their hands and their feet. They're flapping and they're tapping and they're in constant motion. These are the kids that see the airplane 6 miles away and they hear it too. These are the kids that you're talking to your wife or your husband or your loved one upstairs and your kid downstairs in the basement hears everything. Their auditory acuity is intense. Their vision is increased. They see everything. They know that if there's a small little piece of something in their cereal bowl, they're not going to eat it, right? They see everything. It's like they have microscopes for eyes. You can't be in growth and protection at the same time. You can't be in that stress response and expect your body to grow. It doesn't work that way. Dr. Bruce Lipton, a very, very highly esteemed geneticist, says this. You can't be in both those modes. So if you're in that stress response, gosh, you're not going to grow cognitively, developmentally the way that you should. This is the new paradigm. Thinking well, moving well, eating well, getting your body well adjusted. That's the new perfect storm that needs to be out there. We need to understand and teach patients how to move by removing interference from their nervous system, how to eat, getting the right foods into their system, and thinking well, allowing parents to praise their children and not just reprimand them for everything that they're doing. Guys, we're all guilty of this in our own lives. we, get caught up. We start to say, do this, don't do that. I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you did that. We have to take a step back. We have to understand that what we're experiencing is our own stuff, and our children absorb that. We just have to remove the interference and let our children become what they can be. I'm going to leave you guys with this. This is a wrap-up.
There's a telegram for you, ma'am, and the message is clear. It says there's something bugging you and buzzing in your ear. The results can be quite itchy, so what is your reply? Tell you're on the swap that fly. Hey, there's a telegraph line. You got yours and I got mine. It's called the nervous system, and everybody understands those telegraph commands, and you know that everybody better listen. The central nervous system is the brain and the spine. The brain controls the system, and the spine is the line. Telegrams come in to tell what's happening to you, and telegrams go out to tell your body what to do. Sir, better read it on the spot. It says your hand is near a stove that's very, very hot. The results can be quite painful, and there's no time to think. Quick, pull that hand away and get it to the sink. There's a telegraph line. You got yours and I got mine. It's called the nervous system, and everybody understands those telegraph commands, and you know that everybody better listen. Your peripheral nerves, they go all out, delivering those messages your senses send out. From your hearing and touch to your sight and taste and smell, they let your brain react to all the messages they tell. There's a telegram for you, kid, and it's at an awkward time. It says you've got to go on stage and you forgot your lines. You're gonna be embarrassed cause this telegram's a rush. Your heart starts beating faster and you blush. Hey, there's a telegraph line. You got yours and I got mine. It's called the nervous system, and everybody understands those telegram commands, and you know that everybody better listen. The autonomic system has a hold of you, controlling automatically some things that you do. Your breathing and your heartbeat just go on naturally. And when you're scared, your nerves will rev up the speed. Hey, there's a telegraph line. You got yours and I got mine. It's called the nervous system, and everybody understands those telegraph commands, and you know that everybody better listen.
Hey, I didn't make this up. It was Schoolhouse Rock. Listen, I want to thank you all for listening. And I know many of you right now are thinking, they're wondering. Every single one of you are wondering, is this why my child is acting this way? Is this why my husband is acting this way? Is this why I have this symptom? Is this why I have that? Is this what's happening in my world? Is this what's happening with my child, my family, my community? What is going on? I wonder if he has one of these subluxations or whatever that is. Is this why my child is flapping? Could it be simple as a subluxation? It could be. And I have a very strong opinion about this. I believe that each and every one of you tonight, at the very least, deserves an opportunity to find out if this is happening in your family, in you, in your child. Why is my child not functioning at their optimal? Do you agree? I could agree. I could go home tonight and I could say to my wife, you know what, I hope they got it. I hope they understood what I said. I was on for about an hour and a half, Stacy, and I think they got it. I hope they did. And I think I did good. But I don't want to hope. I want to give you the opportunity. I want you to be able to see for yourself if this is what's going on. What I'd like to do for each and every one of you on this call, if you're interested, is I left Kim, my office manager's email address up top. I want you to write on the title that you're at this webinar, and in the body of the email say I'm in. When you write I'm in, what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to be able to use that diagnostic equipment that I have, and I'm one of the only doctors that has this piece of equipment. I want to be able to scan you, scan your family, scan your child for no charge. Let's see if this is going on inside of your system. Let's see if your nervous system is functioning at its optimal. If it is, you're going to see it, I'm going to see it, and we're going to be happy. If it's not, we're going to have that conversation too. I'm going to give you the information. What you do with that information is up to you. But I want to offer that because this is our first webinar that we've done. I'm really excited to be part of this, and I want to be able to share this wealth of information to you guys as well. So I want to thank you all for listening. I want to thank Lisa for having me. I want to thank for all of you that have been listening, that have sat through this presentation and said, you know what, I'm going to stay on and I'm going to listen because I think that this is a good understanding of what's happening with myself or my child. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to ask if there's any questions that you guys have. You could put it in your text box, give it to Lisa. Lisa will then convey it to me, and I would love to answer your questions at this point.